What is up, everybody? Welcome to another weekend roundup here on Touchline Talk. Before I jump in, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out on YouTube every single week. The major development this weekend, Barcelona officially champions of La Liga. Of course, this was a long time coming. It was a question of when, not if. But they get the win over Espanyol and officially clinch the title. A couple things I want to focus in on for a couple minutes. One is revisiting the conversation I've had all season, which is there's a reason I've had Barcelona ahead of Real Madrid in my top 25. The gap between these two teams in La Liga and the fact that Barcelona won the season series and at one point beat Real Madrid 3 out of the first 4 times they played leaves no disputing who the best team in Spain this season was. The Champions League is a different conversation, which is also what makes this so interesting, because if you ask any soccer fan who is more likely to win the Champions League next season, I bet at least 90% of people, including myself, will tell you Real Madrid. But Barcelona was the better team this season. Consistency has to matter. It's not that just they won La Liga, it's that they waltzed to a title. Because Real Madrid didn't put up a fight. And yes, I understand that Real Madrid obviously are playing for a spot in the Champions League final, and Barcelona didn't get out of the group stage of the Champions League and then immediately exited the Europa League. That still doesn't mean Real Madrid are the better team at this moment in time. But it's a different conversation of if you're asking somebody to beat Manchester City versus somebody to beat insert average La Liga team here. Celta Vigo, whoever. Those are different conversations. But which team do you trust to show up every week? It's Barcelona. Now, usually when Barcelona win the league this way, or Real Madrid, they're also clearly the most dangerous team in Spain. And that's just not the case here. This was the first step toward Barcelona getting back to being Barcelona. Because they had gone 3 seasons without winning a title. I believe it was 8 of 10 before that they won. They dominated the last decade. And then Real Madrid, Atleti, Real Madrid. In those 3 seasons they didn't win a title, their points total was closer to Atleti's than Real Madrid's. They simply were not all that competitive. And so you go from that to this. And again, you've got to give Xavi an immense amount of credit for what he's been able to do in this situation with everything going on, the financials, the other stuff. There's a lot of external things this team had to deal with, and yet they still were able to deliver not necessarily the title they wanted, and not even necessarily the season they wanted. But they got themselves back on top of La Liga, and that's a huge deal. Because that's been their thing. When Barcelona are really good, they win this league. Real Madrid have more success in the Champions League. They've got their whole Champions League thing. But some of the, when they were 3-peating in the Champions League, they weren't winning La Liga consistently. Barcelona was. And so this is, like I said, the first step. For exactly the reason I laid out earlier. Nobody actually thinks they're one of the 3, maybe even one of the 5 most dangerous teams in the world. They're not one of the favorites to win the Champions League next season. And we don't know what this is going to look like moving forward with everything they've got going on. So it has to continue to grow from here for Barcelona to be back to being Barcelona. To me, this is more about Real Madrid at least as much about Real Madrid not showing up as it is what Barcelona did. But Barcelona got back to a point where they were capable of winning a league title and then put pressure on, and Real Madrid couldn't respond. You got to give them credit for that. But we're still so far away from Barcelona being Barcelona again. Because I think if you just ask anybody which team is better, you're going to get more Real Madrids than Barcelona's. And I get why. On paper, that's probably true. But the better team this season was Barcelona. And you got to do more than just win this league once in a season where Real Madrid weren't at it to get back to being Barcelona. But this is the foundation to build off of to get back to that point. This was the first thing that had to happen. They had to get control of this league back. Because Champions Leagues are unpredictable. You know, Chelsea won one, well, two, without being a factor in the Premier League at all. That's the next step, though, is you got to be competitive domestically, and then you got to start making noise in Europe. And so it's just this really weird season in Spain to evaluate, because Real Madrid might win the Champions League again. Barcelona got the better of Real Madrid head-to-head, generally, won the league by a significant margin with plenty of games to spare, and then also were terrible in Europe. And I'm just somebody who gives the credit to the team that showed up week in and week out in the league. So the question is, where does Barcelona go from here? Do they make another run at the title next season? What do they do in the Champions League? What does this look like financially? It is the beginning. It's that first step. The question is whether they can take the rest of the steps that are needed to catch up to where Real Madrid are at. But congratulations to Barcelona. This was a big, big deal. And you saw it in the celebrations, which I want to touch on briefly just because of what happened at the end and the Espanyol fans getting onto the field and Barcelona's players, understandably, hustling to the locker room. If you want to say that was classless from Barcelona, the way they celebrated, you want to say you don't do that on your, local rivals' field, fine. It's a conversation we can have. I refuse to give the benefit of the doubt to fans, though. That is where I am not willing to have a conversation. After what we have seen over the past few years and just in general, because I saw some suggestions of, well, you don't know what they were going to do. Maybe they weren't actually going after Barcelona's players. And it's not everybody. But remember what happened to Patrick Vieira. That's just one example of many, right? And again, it's not everybody. And it's unfortunate that some fans take it too far and kind of ruin it for everybody else. But there is no reason to trust those fans running onto the field that they're going to behave themselves and be respectful toward Barcelona. And also, the field is for the players. I am that party pooper who is not a huge fan of people getting onto the field. After the game, when you're celebrating, that's a little bit different. A la Manchester City last season. And even there, you heard some not so great things. But fans don't belong on the field. There is a time and a place and a way to do it where it's appropriate. I'm not saying fans should never get onto the field. But that's not the place to do it. You can have the more nuanced conversation and say, well, Barcelona didn't help themselves either and maybe invited it a little bit. And like I said, I'll buy that. I'll have a conversation. But that does not justify fans coming onto the field and posing that kind of threat simply by being there. Nobody knows what their intentions were. But the fact they're on the field is more than enough justification for Barcelona to get out of there as fast as they can. And that should not be happening right after you clinch a title. It just shouldn't. So that was part of this too. I wanted to acknowledge that. A couple other things to hit on quickly. Premier League title race is just about over, not officially, but Arsenal lose to Brighton. Manchester City take care of business against Everton. I gave my whole spiel about Arsenal that disappointment and failure are not the same things. You can go back and listen to that. I don't have anything new to add here. I already gave my kind of the title races over speech. And I will save my Manchester City speech until the title is actually clinched. So I want to focus on more on the Brighton side of this. And obviously, they've been tremendous all season. And I didn't talk about this maybe as much as I should have when this happened, so I want to bring it back up here. When Graham Potter left, Brighton found just about the only person on the planet who could have taken what they did and then taken it even a step further. And I did write about this, but I don't think I talked about it too much on video. If you look at the numbers behind some of the teams Roberto De Zerbi had managed before, specifically Sassuolo, they found the next best thing next to Graham Potter in terms of style of play and philosophy and just being able to get somebody in who wants to do the same things Graham Potter did. Except De Zerbi hasn't just done the same things. He has elevated this team even higher. But it's the combination of both. And it's a credit to Brighton that they knew exactly what they wanted and they found the perfect guy. To me, this was not luck. And there are all these questions about, De Zerbi kind of came out of nowhere. Can he handle the Premier League? And now, it's how long does he stay at Brighton? Does he stay at Brighton past this summer? Because he's the new, hottest name and manager in the world of managing because he's been so good. But he fit the DNA perfectly. And it didn't take rocket science to figure that out. And he's been even better than I expected. But you got to give them credit for continuing to believe in what they were building after Graham Potter and not letting Graham Potter be the end of the project. They went and found somebody who believed in the same things and who was going to utilize these players they had built, the players they had acquired, in a similar way. And now you're seeing all these guys have the best seasons of their career, thanks in no small part to Roberto De Zerbi. It doesn't always work. I mean, they've lost to 2 relegation candidates here in the past couple weeks. But when it does, it is a joy to watch. And this is another important step towards getting to Europe. They got a difficult end to the schedule, but they got all 3 points here. And every week, every point they put on the board, they're getting closer and closer to clinching Europa League. And I sincerely hope they do, just as a reward for everything right that they have done. From the players they brought in, the managers, the managerial change and that transition, the way it was handled, the way the players are performing, the way De Zerbi has improved this team even when it looked like they might have hit their ceiling, all of that. I just love well-run clubs who do things the right way, and Brighton is the epitome of that right now. And then championship playoff first legs this weekend. Want to mention this real quickly. Sunderland come from behind at the Stadium of Light to beat Luton Town 2-1 in the first leg. A couple noteworthy things here. First, Elijah Adebayo, who basically didn't get to play I believe he saw the field for all of 1 minute. He didn't get to play a big role because of injury last season. That was kind of the big question was, is Adebayo going to play? And he just really wasn't able to make a difference. He gets the goal for Luton Town, so he gets his moment, his opportunity to come back and fight for promotion to the Premier League again. So really cool story there. And then the equalizer from Amad Diallo. If you haven't seen it, absolutely gorgeous. He was sensational. I saw that, you're hearing stuff that Eric Ten Hag is basically saying, yeah, this guy's part of the plan at United. Obviously, he's on loan right now at Sunderland. But there was a lot of buzz when Manchester United bought him. And then, he goes on a loan in the Championship. He kind of goes out of the spotlight. And then he reappeared in the biggest game of his team's season. And boy, was he spectacular. He is going to be a very, very good player for Manchester United. And so you get him delivering that. Garnacho scores another late goal. You've got some very, very exciting youth prospects at Manchester United. And then Sunderland do get a second goal, so they head to Luton Town with a 2-1 lead in a game that they were probably the better team in and probably deserved the win. But pretty closely matched. So this one is going, I really feel like it's about 50-50 here. And I could definitely see this thing going to a shootout and, ending tied on aggregate after the two legs. Then you got Middlesbrough, Coventry. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention too, a little U.S. men's national team report. Lyndon Gooch had some bad moments as captain of Sunderland. Just a couple, he got bullied by Adebayo on the goal. Not Adebayo, but I forget who it was. But Luton Town have a massive size advantage. That's how the goal came about. Lyndon Gooch was part of that. And then Ethan Horvath also had some shaky moments in net. Nothing disastrous, but the distribution a couple of times and just not looking incredibly confident. So not a spectacular day for your two U.S. men's national team players involved, but have a chance to improve on things in the second leg. And then, as I was starting to mention, Middlesbrough, Coventry City, 0-0 draw in leg one. Borough were the better team, better chances, probably should have had a goal, and have to feel really good going into the second leg. Zach Steffen had very little to do. He just kind of chilled and made saves you would expect him to make. Borough weren't, sensational going forward where you felt like, how in the world didn't they score multiple times? But they looked a lot more confident. You could see why they're the team that have scored way more goals this season. They were good, and very, very nearly got a goal. And like I said, have to feel very, very good heading into that second leg going home. That this is right there for the taking. I feel much more confident that Borough are going to get to the championship than I do Sunderland or Luton Town. That one is much more difficult for me to call after that first leg. Borough, to me, were just clearly the better team in this one and didn't get the goal. But especially in a world where away goals don't matter, not the end of the world at all. You just have to avoid losing to at least give yourself a chance, and any kind of win sends you to that playoff final. That is all for the weekend roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.